what do you think are Singaporeans' best and worst hygiene habits? Maybe Minister, you can start with you.
Well, you call it habit because we take things for granted. For example, until recently, even myself, when I after I eat in a hawker center, I have my tissue paper. I'll put it inside, and I think that's not littering, and that's just keeping it away from the floor and so forth. But I'm beginning to recognize that these are also what I call now little biohazards that you leave on the table sometime, or even in your bowl. So therefore, we need to change so that not only are we not littering, why not adopt good personal hygiene standards, good eating habits, eat on a tray, so that if the food falls out of of your bowl, it falls on the tray, and then when we return the tray, and that's the other thing we should be doing too, the table is clean for the next person. Not only clean for the next person, you also want a clean table next time you come. At the same time, the cleaners do not have to do cleaning up after you, keeping it hygienic, sanitizing and everything. So we reduce the workload of the cleaners. So just by not littering on the table or leaving food all over the table, a habit which I think we all can adjust to, we can do a lot. We can start. We can save a lot of things on people's effort to help us.
What about the best habit, or what is the best anecdote that you can think of?
Generally speaking, our citizens and people who live in Singapore, they generally do not litter, and I've seen people actually pocket their litter, and I've seen people walk some distance before they throw things into the bins. There's just a few people who are very recalcitrant, who just drop. They think it's a small thing, like a little bit of plastic bag, or after they eat under the void deck, leave bottles behind. These are the people, unfortunately, we have to enforce against. But generally speaking, we have a certain good standard in Singapore, but we really need to think about how to make that standard even higher, and then maintain that standard. Let's be honest. I mean, we are a first world country, but let's be honest whether we are already a first world people where hygiene and cleanliness is concerned. It must be coming from here and not coming from somewhere enforcing against us. And I think that the jury is still out, whether we are doing it because we are enforcing it or because we really love to do it. I would love to assume that it is because we love our environment and we want to keep things clean.
Maybe the science can help. So, Prof.
Maybe I should make a comment first. For somebody who travel around the world and live and work in 4 different countries, I think one thing I was most impressed is, I think, a zero tolerance of food and drink in public transportation, even no water in MRT. So I still remember, when I first arrived in Singapore with my children, from Australia, and they could not believe that even water is not allowed. And I personally found that that's incredible. The whole society is used to that concept, and also they monitor. So when arrived, the daughter, children don't know, they're just drinking water. The people next to it, very gentle reminder to say, actually, we can tell you're from outside Singapore. Water is actually not allowed in MRT. So I was very impressed. Not only we have this policy and the citizens abide by, and they actually are helping visitors, the people just arrived in Singapore, to make sure, that's practiced.
But Prof. Wong, even before the outbreak, there have been many public hygiene recommendations in place, such as returning your trays and not littering. But can you just share what is the scientific basis behind not helping infectious diseases spread by practicing these personal hygiene methods? Like, for example, just now Edward mentioned that, by leaving food out, you can attract pigeons and other kinds of birds. Can you just elaborate a little bit more?
Scientifically, it's clear, right? There's when you have infectious material, whether it's a virus or bacteria, that, especially when you have food, the living organism can grow. So that's one thing. The other is that we already says, if you have any contact contaminants, on the table and things like that, if you leave longer, there's more chance for some person to come in. And then the mosquito and the birds, of course, these are the even more serious, right? Once the living animals, whether it's a mosquito or birds, get your food, then they will transmit and replicate in their body. So scientifically, without any doubt, that all of these will contribute to the growing of the pathogen and the spread of pathogen. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that. I mean, one of the things I get a lot of, in NEA, people complain about birds, people complain about sitting on the tables. But really, we can solve this problem quite easily. Return the tray. All of us return the tray. The birds will learn there are no food on the table. And then they won't eat it, because you cannot expect our cleaners to be running after you every time you eat to clear the table so that the birds don't eat. I mean, let's be more humane.
Mr. Masagos, after the SG Clean Task Force was announced, some colleagues and I went to a couple of hawker centres around Singapore, found that people were practicing better hygiene before their meals. They were wiping down their tables with hand sanitizer, but after their meals, they would just walk away and leave their trays there. But, Edward, this question is for you actually. So after the article was published, some people wrote in to us to say that, sometimes there's not enough infrastructure in place, whether it be like tray return racks or even public bins. So what is your take on that?
I think that's another challenging issue that we are facing in the moment now. And I think we realized that we lag behind the curve in some extent in terms of the ecosystem of a hawker center in that sense. Many of the hawker centers were built many years ago. So we have to live with that physical constraint. And the idea of having tray return trolleys was mooted by NEA before. But I think the ecosystem has highlighted a few gaps. The locations of these tray return facilities, sometimes they are out of sight. And from my own anecdotal observations and discussions, many of the patrons say that they can't be seen or they're too far to walk to the tray return trolleys. And I think that is something which we need to bear in mind in the designs of our future hawker centers and food courts. Secondly, also is the customer journey that we go through. Because when we realize when they finish the food, so if we want them to take the tray return facility should be as close as possible to them so that they don't have to walk a long way. These are just behavioral patterns, you see. So I think this is something which we can learn and we can improve working together with the hawker centers department and see how we can make this a better place. The other one is actually, we forget, is the cleaning operators also. The cleaning operators will have to also upskill themselves. And how we can help them mechanize to some extent, at the same time, educate and promote awareness to their own cleaners. Because there is this fear sometimes, and we hear this fear that the cleaners feel that it's their duty. But actually, they can do much a better, efficient job if they will be doing other things rather than just clearing your tray. So I think these are little things that we can tweak as we move in the months ahead, in that sense. So I think there's a lot that we can learn, and I think it's better that we accept these issues here and improve on them.
So beyond tray return at hawker centres, another issue that has come up today is the issue of littering. So maybe Mr. Tan, you can chime in on the number of public bins we have island-wide.
Well, just the public bins that is owned by NEA, we already have 11,000 over kind of bins, not counting even the town council bins, the shopping malls, they have the bins, the MRTs have their own bins. So actually, Singapore has no shortage of bins. and the bins are actually within very easy reach. So actually, there are really no reasons why a person can say that I cannot find a bin, so I just drop it. So it's just a short distance, you will find a bin somewhere.
In countries like Japan, there's no public bin in sight. So I would just like to end off by asking the panelists, any last words on this issue of keeping clean to keep well during the current outbreak? Minister?
I started by saying public hygiene, personal hygiene is our first defense. And it's not just our defense against COVID-19 today, but against other breakouts that we cannot foresee in future. In the last 20 years, there are already 4 breakouts that we were worried about: SARS, MERS, H1N1, and then now COVID-19. It just got worse and worse. It's either contagious or dangerous, and this time around it's both contagious and dangerous. And therefore, we do need to think deeply for ourselves and also for society what we want and how we're going to ensure that what we do will build these defenses for the future. And nothing beats a better personal hygiene and understanding why we have to do it, and then to ensure that public hygiene is also ensured at the same time.
Anyone else? Edward?
Well, I think I echo Minister's vision. At the end of the day, and I will say this again, it's a personal responsibility to keep that every one of us should therefore bear in mind. And if we are able to be conscious of this personal responsibility acts that we can do, I think Singapore will be a much cleaner place in all sense of the word. So I think that's my own wish and my vision that I see down the road.